Hello and welcome to Talking Live. I'm Dr. Robi Ludwig right here in Starshop Studio in Times Square. And we are so thrilled to have one of my nearest and dearest friends, Dr. Jeff Gardere, otherwise known as America's psychologist. You have seen him on Bravo. He has helped the women of Atlanta, the housewives of Atlanta, of Potomac. He was the principal psychologist on Love and Hip Hop.
Yeah.
Everyone knows him. He's a huge star and a wonderful person.
Oh, my.
And we are here to talk about his latest project, which is very important.
Yes.
He co-produced a very important documentary called Erasing Family. So we are going to talk about that today because I was blown away by this film.
Yeah, you were there at the red carpet,
Yes.
and we showed a preview of the film. Ginger Gentile, who is the director, this is her vision. Let's put it
Yeah.
out there. And she did an amazing job at pointing out what happens when there's a breakup between partners, and what happens to the children, especially when there's an agenda and people are at each other's throats. And so, congratulations to her, and thank you so much for being a dear friend and being there.
Well, first of all, I show up for you. You're always
You
involved
always do.
in very
You always
important.
do, and I do my best for you,
You
too,
do.
of course.
You do for very important projects. This was at Lincoln Center, and it was a full crowd. I
Yes,
mean,
it
the
was.
room was absolutely packed.
Yes.
And what was so interesting, I learned so much from the documentary.
Yeah.
There were things that I really did not know. And Ginger was very brave. This was her English attempt at this film because
That's right.
she touched on this topic in Argentina, and it was based on her own family history. Two beautiful parents, evidently, that had a very difficult
Yes.
divorce and left her wanting to share her story and also prevent this from happening to anyone else.
And isn't it amazing, though, as therapists, we see this where we do the therapy with our patients, our clients, and we try to help them cure themselves,
Yes.
work with their issues, but then we have these remarkable stories of individuals who not only try to work with themselves and resolve the issues, but then they want to help everyone else. They want to spread that love and forgiveness, and I think that is so wonderful.
It's truly when we feel our best. I know
Yes,
that's
yes.
true for me. We
Yes.
also showed a picture of Ginger, and in the U.S. alone, there are 22 million parents who are being erased from their children's
Yes.
lives.
Yes.
That's a huge number. This is after divorce. I always assumed
Yeah.
that after divorce, there was joint custody, unless there was something really, really off with one parent. And now the court systems have gotten way more fair in
Yes.
terms of paternal custody.
Yes.
But that didn't seem to be the case according to this documentary.
Right, and so my understanding is that they would immediately defer to mom.
Okay.
And I mean, psychologically, I get it, right? Who's supposed to be the more maternal mom in the coupling? Who's the person who actually, in most cases, gives the actual biological physical birth? Who's the first person that they put the baby on? Not the partner who didn't have the baby, but the one
Yes.
who's delivered. And so, yes, I get it. And I think psychologically, a lot of people thought, unless there's something really wrong with the mom should have the major custody, and then the other partner, in most cases back in the day, the dad, would then get visitation. And now what we really want to see is getting equal custody,
Yeah.
50-50, and not just automatically saying it's mom, but assessing and making sure, having folks like us assess and make sure that both of them are healthy enough, or at least getting some mental health in order to do this equally.
So automatically the courts will say full custody to the mom? It's not a joint custody? Or
Well,
is there a difference between joint custody and shared custody?
You see, and with that, I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
My experience, Dr. Robi, has always been that, again, unless there's some issue with the mom, that you work off the custody of the mom and making sure that there is that equal custody. But most often, I think when it comes down to the letter of the law, the person who has where the youngster will live will be with the mother, and that's the one who has, I guess, the custody in that way.
So the goal of this documentary is obviously to prevent parental alienation, which is
Yes.
really what we're talking about in the movie.
Yes.
Where literally a child is brainwashed to hate or eliminate one of the parents. In some cases, it's the mom. In other cases, it's the dad. And the devastating ripple effect it has on the entire family. Explain a little bit about parental alienation, what causes it, and what it looks like.
Well, and you gave a great explanation, definition of it. And we typically see, and that's why, in response to your questions, who automatically gets custody and so on. And I think, by the way, those rules have changed in different states as to who has custody in name, but then sharing that custody. But what we see is usually the custodial parent, the one who, by the letter of the law, the kids are living with, may get themselves into a situation and have the sway to be able to turn that child against the other parent, whether they're doing it consciously, which is the worst thing, by bad-mouthing that parent or talking about how inadequate the parent is, or in fact, if that parent does have some major issues, why the parent is not in that child's life as they should be, over time, that does begin to poison the mind of that child, where now they do feel alienated from that parent outside of the home, and that parent feels alienated from the child. And so this is something that is not healthy for the child. Even if you have a parent who may not deserve to be with the child, one of the worst things you could do is to still badmouth that parent, still talk in a negative way, because as you know, that child will internalize that. So you can say, that parent has some issues, we want to work with that. But that parental alienation is something that has hurt so many kids. That's the collateral damage, and why Ginger put this film together, because in many ways she experienced that and saw so many other people who experienced it.
So in Ginger's case, was she alienated against her father or her mother?
I believe what the situation was, it was Erasing Dad was the name of the film. So Dad was erased. Yes.
And we have a picture of you doing a Q&A afterwards, and there were a lot of lawyers there, there were divorce coaches there, there were people
family mediators, because I think everyone's on the same page, right? What we don't want is a situation of the courts taking one person's side versus the other. Instead, they should be trying to fix the situation where the two of them can coexist. If one of them has some serious issues, working with that parent and bringing them up to snuff, that old term, so that they can be a healthy parent. So now you're seeing, hopefully, the focus of the attorneys, instead of a situation of where they're in the middle of a fight, trying to have more conflict resolution. That's what family mediators were doing. That's what divorce mediators are doing. And that's what we want to see, more conflict resolution, instead of just taking one side and having a war between the two parents, where the loser is the child or are the children.
And I think one of the goals was, in New York State, it's one of the only states that doesn't have shared custody, which is different, I imagine, than joint custody, or is it the same?
Exactly.
Shared custody is assuming that each parent can take care of their child. One of the challenges is financial. Always follow the money. It's important and explains a lot, right? Where the state, in some cases, is making money off of these sad situations. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, certainly what we've seen when it comes to child support, especially, back payments that grow over time, the state will say, listen, it costs us a lot of money to chase you down and get this money. It costs us a lot of money to have, caseworkers involved in trying to work out these situations. We have to pay ourselves. We have to reimburse some of those costs. This is what I'm thinking their thinking is. And therefore, if a person has to pay child support of $1,000 a month, some percentage of that will go towards the state. The rest of it will go to the parent who's supposed to get that payment. So it's not a straight transaction of that $1,000 going straight to the person.
Which is what we would assume.
Exactly. And the more, by the way, you would think our tax dollars pay for it, right? But the more monies that are owed, I would think with interest and so on, the less that the more the person who owes the money has to pay, the less the parent who's receiving the money will get, and we may see a little bit more going to the state. Not totally sure about that, but the point is, it is adulterated. That money's not going straight to the other parent.
And I think a lot of people don't know that. You mentioned a story where the wife/mother said, my ex has no money, he's poor, please stop charging him.
Yeah.
And
which further pushes him away. That's a parental alienation in reverse, where that partner who's broke, who's frustrated with the system, says, you know what, I would love to be my child's life, but you take full custody, I can't do this, or you're not letting me in, or I'm paying too much money, I can't do it, I'm bitter, I'm out of it. And then again, the child is the one who suffers.
But in this case, the state was still charging the father.
Well, the state,
because he owed back money,
exactly.
And she was saying,
the state is not going to forgive it. The state is not going to say,
like
well,
taxes.
we hear you. That's right.
You can't get out of it.
That's right. Death, taxes, and trouble, as Marvin Gaye would say.
Exactly.
I'll add in a fourth one, genetics.
Here's one of the ways I think Hollywood is really terrific. And maybe they can afford to be a little bit more, but the way they handle conscious uncoupling and the way very often families find their way together with the ex being friends with the current husband. And I think in many ways they are good role models in that way. If you have to get divorced. But Tamra Judge, right, who is in the OC Housewives, talked about her own experience with parental alienation and how it was intergenerational. In fact, she was part of one of the charity events, right, for this, Erasing Family. It was interesting to hear her story. Now, I believe she has a daughter who has been erased from her life, or are they finding their way back to each other?
Not totally sure.
But she talked about being alienated from her father, and even at that event, her mother would not come to an event that her father was at.
And these things become almost generational in that it's now passed down, to now another set of people who have these issues with family, and it becomes easier and easier to erase family. So
we have a picture too of Kangol Kid.
Roxanne, and he was going through the same thing. Really felt that his relationship with his child was affected in that way. But the thing is this: it's never too late. Where there is hope, we can unerase a parent and bring that parent back into the picture, but that requires therapeutics, it requires courage, it requires faith to be able to bring someone in. And I have to say this, Robbie, you've known me for a very, very long time. In my first marriage, even I myself, Dr. Jeff, America's psychologist, found that I was engaging in parental alienation, not on a conscious level, but on an unconscious level, saying certain things about my ex, she left us, I'm raising you guys, or yous guys, as we say in Brooklyn.
Yous guys, whatever.
But I had to stop myself and say, wait a minute. As innocent as I may even want to be about something that I'm saying, I'm hurting the image of my ex, but I'm hurting my children, because they weren't like, yeah, Dad, you go. They were like, oh my God, this is terrible. So the point is, it's not just the people that we see in Erasing Family, right? It's not just them. We don't get into that splitting, the psychological, we're good, they're all bad. This can happen to any of us, and you have to be careful that you're engaging in it.
So, right, and even for people who are married, you know.
That's right,
because,
yes.
You know,
That's right. You don't even have to break
when my
them.
kids take my side, but it's not so fun when they take,
Right.
you know, David's side, which
Right.
happens about 50-50.
Right.
You always want to be right and validated.
You can't erase David. That ain't happening, right?
But I think you're right that there has to be an awareness. What is ultimately in the best interest of the kids? And the kids want to love both parents.
Absolutely.
And that's just the bottom line.
And that's
so
what they want.
if we can create a legal system that enables that to happen,
Yes.
and emotional awareness,
Yes.
and this hopefully will come out in Netflix. I think they're
Yes.
finding a home for it.
Yes, they're working with Netflix, working with other distributors, but you will see it coming to, you know, a TV streaming service that you'll be watching
And we
soon.
also have a YouTube clip of
Yes.
what you can hope to see from the movie when it comes out. We do something called the Quick Five.
Okay, here we go.
And here we go. Now we're going to find out even more about you, Dr. Jeff. And you
All
have
right,
fans
don't
out
fall
there.
asleep, guys,
you have fans out there.
with Dr.
Okay.
Jeff, all right.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That turn every negative into a positive, and the greatest lessons of life are the mistakes that you make. Learn from them, they're necessary.
And it kind of makes you a nicer person because you can only be humble
That's
if
right.
you've made mistakes and come back.
That's right.
You know,
Yes.
so that's really true. What personality trait has gotten you in the most trouble?
My humor. Yes, and I used to tell a lot of kind of off-color jokes, not racist jokes, but I found teaching medical school, and we know what today's students are like.
Yeah.
Very sensitive,
Right.
millennials. So now I have to find a better way to teach. Can't rely on the cheap jokes.
Okay.
And so that's a very positive thing.
How did you get so positive?
Spirituality.
Yeah.
You know, my parents died when I was extremely young. I've pretty much raised myself from the time I was 18. And so I've had no choice but to be positive, but I really do believe that I've been blessed by the Creator. And of course, having wonderful people like you, and I mean this, in my life, always makes me positive because you are a role model in your positivity, and I love you, Dr. Rob.
Oh, I love you back. And you've been very inspirational when I've had some challenging moments at work.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
you've been there
yes,
for me. And
Yes,
so,
absolutely. We've been there for one another.
yeah, it is a
That's
blessing.
another show.
That's,
Yes.
that's another show. The blessings of good friends that
Yes.
are well-wishers.
Yes, and that's important.
Yeah. Okay, when you're having a bad day, what do you do to make yourself feel better?
I pray a lot. I'm now, in addition to being, you know, a shrink, I am an ordained minister.
So you can marry people.
I can marry people. I need to marry myself to my partner soon, right?
Yeah,
To
you
talk
gotta
the
get
talk,
on
walk
that.
the walk. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to get married. Yes, I pray. It's one of the most important things. And look, by the way, I'm into faith, so all religions.
Yeah.
But for me, I read Psalms 23. The Lord is my shepherd. It's for anxiety.
You had a bris for your son.
Yes, exactly. My
You know.
my two youngest are Jewish.
Right.
And then Psalm 91, which I love, which is about protection, under the armor of God.
Perfect. Love it.
Or whomever your God may be, whatever you call your God.
Who would play you in a movie of your life?
I would like to see me play me in a movie
Yes.
of my life, and I'll tell you why. I wouldn't insult anyone by having to play me. There's no one who looks like me or sounds like me, and I don't want them to be denigrated in that way. So I'll take the pain of doing
You'll
that.
play you.
Yeah,
I like it.
in my 60s.
Where can people find you now? You work with
Yes,
Lauren Lake.
Yes, I work with Lauren Lake's Paternity Court, Couples Court with the Cutlers, but they can go to my website, Dr. Jeff Gardere.
And we'll have a link?
Yep.
And we'll have a link.
And you can find me on Google or any place else.
Yeah, you're
I'm
out
all
there.
over the place.
That's how we find each other.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you soon.